A new report by the Public Affairs Research Institute shows that 5.5 million of 10 million poor households haven't received free electricity. 2.5 million aren't connected to the electricity grid at all. The study looked at the situation over the past 2 decades. For more on this, we're joined by Public Affairs Research Institute senior researcher, Dr. Tracy Ledger. Dr. Ledger, good evening and thank you so much for your time. It's interesting because recently we had Stats SA release some of its figures in terms of the non-financial state of service delivery in municipalities. And one of the things that they found was that there seemed to be an improvement when it comes to the provision of households where basic services are concerned. However, the margins of those numbers seem to be declining, and the issue of criteria seems to be one that government is currently dealing with, and municipalities are deciding ad hoc the criteria of who should qualify for some of these free basic services.
Yes, that's exactly right. So what we have in the budget every year is National Treasury calculates based on the 2011 census and the 2016 household, the community survey, how many poor households there are in South Africa. And last year that amount was just over 10 million households. So what we have is they then decide how many households in each municipality are going to qualify for the free basic services, a whole package of free basic services, water, sanitation, electricity, and they transfer the money to the municipalities. But the municipalities have their own criteria for deciding who actually qualifies to be registered as an indigent household. And it's actually quite difficult to be registered as an indigent household. You have to be the owner of the property, you can't rent, you have to prove that you're poor, you have to prove that you don't have an income. And essentially what's happening is that only about a third of the households that are funded in the budget for the free basic services actually receive them because they haven't been registered as indigent with the municipality. So the situation is particularly bad with free basic electricity, but it's across all of the free basic services.
Is that part of the reason why there are so many people excluded when it comes to the provision of basic electricity?
Yes, that's exactly why. So we see just over 10 million households are being funded in the budget, but only about 2 million households are getting the benefit. Then we've got to remember that there are 2.5 million households that don't have access to an electricity connection, so obviously they can't get the free basic electricity. But even if we take that into account, there's still 5.5 million households that have been funded in the national budget to get free basic electricity, but are not getting that benefit from the municipality. And that the value of that is around 6 billion rand a year, and that is money that those households, the poorest households in South Africa, have to go and find themselves to go and purchase electricity or paraffin or coal. It's money that they desperately need to spend on other necessities like food.
Have you been able to find out where that money is going to? If there's an allocation for it, it should be a no-brainer that it gets to the determined recipient. So what else is that money being used for?
Well, the details in the fine print. So the money that's allocated for the free basic services is actually a discretionary grant. So the municipality doesn't have to use that money for free basic services. But if they don't, they're supposed to disclose why. I've never seen a municipality that's done that. And they're supposed to consult with the community. I've also never seen a municipality that's done that. So because it's a discretionary grant, if they don't allocate the money to free basic services, that 6 billion rand that should go to free basic electricity, they can use it for whatever they like. It just goes into general revenue. So the problem is that there's this perverse incentive that actually incentivizes municipalities to make it as difficult as possible to get the free basic services, because then they can take the money as revenue. And nobody in national government exercises oversight over this.
Talk to me about this issue of criteria and the criteria that municipalities are using, because that in and of itself, almost limiting the number of people who qualify as indigent households, also means that there's a lesser responsibility to provide services to constituencies, and therefore you have such a big group of people that are simply left out of the system without any way of recourse.
Absolutely, and it's not just free basic electricity. That same SSA report that you referred to showed that between 2018 and 2019, the number of households that received free water declined by 1 million households. So what happens is that municipalities can set their own criteria, and often they set it to be very exclusionary. So they'll set a very low income limit, for example, and then you have to prove, I mean, how do you prove that you don't have an income? People will say, the municipality will say, bring your UIF slip to prove you're unemployed. But if you've never had a job, which is millions of South Africans, then how do you prove that you don't have a job? Most municipalities also say that you can only get the benefit if you own the property. But if you rent, then you're automatically excluded. There are all sorts of other awful draconian measures. So one of the things is that the free basic electricity is only 50 kilowatt hours. It's not nowhere near the amount of electricity that a household needs. But most municipalities will say that if you actually buy more electricity than that, if you manage to scrape together a little bit of money to buy more electricity, that somehow proves that you don't need the free basic electricity, and so you lose it. If you're so poor that you can't pay your municipal accounts, you can also lose it. If you run any kind of business from your property, trying to earn a bit more money, you lose it. So the whole system is essentially designed to punish people for being poor.
Dr. Tracy Leisure, let me thank you for your time. We'll leave it there for tonight. She's with the Public Affairs Research Institute.